All right. If you are a DMO marketer, you've probably heard 100 takes on AI now, maybe half of them on our Tourism AI Network podcast that we do. But, a lot of the other ones you hear are either hype or panic. But this new series that we are doing right now is neither. So I am Kendall, and I am sitting down here with Peter and Gerardo, and we are going to have a series of conversations actually, about where AI actually fits in destination marketing. So this isn't theory, it is reality. Let's start off with who we all are and why we're doing this. So I'm Kendall. I work at the Tourism AI Network. And about a decade ago, I worked at a DMO. So before AI was even on anyone's radar, I understand how DMOs operate, the constraints they're working under, and just how adopting anything new like this feels can be very overwhelming. I think Peter and Gerardo thought because of that perspective, it made me a good person to host these conversations. So with that, I am going to pass the mic over to Peter to introduce himself for any new listeners we might have.
Thanks, Kendall. So I am Peter. For those who don't know me, I am the founder of the Tourism AI Network, also the president of CIPR Communications. And so CIPR Communications is a digital PR agency focused on tourism. Interestingly, Kendall worked at Tourism Kamloops. And when my wife and I went full-time, I quit our jobs and started CIPR Communications. One of our first clients out the gate was Tourism Kamloops. And so kind of a full circle situation over here. And so we've had the good fortune of working with DMOs, tourism operators, different associations, chambers of commerce, and generally service-based businesses is kind of our focus at CIPR Communications. And about 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, this AI conversation started getting bigger and bolder and more important. And so I said, you know what, we need an organization to help the tourism industry with AI adoption, which was the genesis of Tourism AI Network. And really my goal is just demystifying AI, helping make it practical and useful, not hyping it. I'm not here to sell software. I'm really here to help organizations think about AI adoption. And I always like to say it's really 3 phases. Number 1 is people and culture. Number 2 is process. And then number 3 is technology. And so really, this is a change management moment. And I'm really trying to help, tourism organizations, DMOs understand how to adapt to change, which is being forced on us by technology.
Gerardo, same question for you. What's your
Of
role
course.
and what are you doing?
Well, I am Gerardo Corro, or Gerardo.
Sorry.
English version. No, that's
English
perfect. So I am the founder and past CEO of Gestur Consultancy Mexico, and more recently Gestur Consultancy Canada. And what we do there is work with destinations to improve their overall strategy, planning, and everyday operations. So we've been doing that for about 18 years. And in 2020, I launched, along with another group of entrepreneurs, Hotels and Academy, which was a startup. It is a startup that takes mom and pop or small hotel businesses from non-technology operations into a more technology-based, AI-based, and platform-based operation. So we would work with hotels that normally would have their reservations and sales in a spreadsheet and take them into a whole new world. And that included both the software and the planning and understanding it, the training, but also a new mindset, right? So we started doing that before the pandemic. It was a huge challenge because it was a hospitality-based business that was launched right before the pandemic, so you can imagine. And then more recently, I moved into Canada 3.5 years ago, and I'm the executive director for Tourism New Westminster, so the DMO for the city of New Westminster. And we have been facing many different challenges that other small DMOs like us face on an everyday basis. So basically, we don't have enough money to do everything we would like to do. We don't have enough staff to do everything we would like to do. We know what we have to do. We just don't have the capacity to go and do it. So this has been an ongoing conversation with the BCDMOA, the British Columbia Destination Marketing and Management Organization Association, which I am part of at the board. So we've been talking about that with many of the members, and how can we improve what we do without necessarily having more money, more resources, and more stuff to do it. The item that keeps coming back and back to the conversation is AI. How can we be better without having more resources other than the technology that is available out there? So that's what we're bringing here to the conversation, the DMO perspective.
I think that is probably such a relatable sentiment is everyone knowing what they need to do and just not having enough money or people to do it. I think, whether you're a nonprofit DMO or a small business, it's just something that never ends. So it's such a great conversation to be having. So Gerardo, you mentioned that it was the BCDMOA. It's a
Yes.
long acronym network that kind of asks you about mapping AI across a marketing workflow. This kind of led to you reaching out to Peter to initiate a conversation about doing something together. What kind of sparked that request and you reaching out to Peter, and why is it so important that this conversation be had?
Well, Peter and the AI network are the experts on the field. We've known each other for quite some time right now, and I think we recognized each other as experts on each side of this conversation, and I thought it was a perfect match to work on this collaboration together.
Absolutely. Peter, throwing it to you, what kind of made you say yes to this conversation? I know that, like Gerard just said, we're busy. We have a million things on the go. Having packing something else into the calendar is never easy. But, why did this feel so important to have this conversation?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, love Gerardo, so that was an easy, always easy to say yes to him. But more importantly than that, I mean, interestingly, one of my first opportunities to speak more broadly to industry was actually at the BC DMOA a couple of years back, and I spoke about AI, and that led to several engagements and conversations, and many things. So we're pretty deep in AI adoption in BC tourism generally. That is sort of a home base for us in terms of where our kind of most of our work happens. And so to me, I really want to continue. My vision for the BC DMOs is to be global leaders in this field and really be leading the conversation around how this can actually work for destinations, not only in British Columbia, but around the world. And so to me, this was an easy, natural progression of that vision and of that desire. And really the opportunity to get past hype. I'm always trying to get past hype. There's a lot of hype. I actually had a conversation yesterday with a guy who is in what we call the trough of disillusionment with AI. Wanted to do all these things, had all these amazing, kind of ideas, and none of them really succeeded. And and he got caught up in the hype. And I started having a conversation with him and making him realize that no, you don't just go to YouTube and whatever the latest YouTuber guy says is going to magically just work for your business. It just doesn't work that way, right? And so, to me, having a real conversation with a real DMO on the ground, a leader in the field, really practical in terms of what we need to do, what's working, what's not working, how do we get past that, how do we deal with the culture and human side, was just a very, very, for me, perfectly timed in terms of what my goals are, and obviously aligning with the BC DMO's goals and Gerardo's goals as well here. It's a perfect fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that you both work with DMOs a lot in different capacities, obviously. I know from my time working at a DMO, it's so overwhelming when the new technology comes out. I know my time was like something new came along, we had to implement it. It was our job to move it forward. But again, like everyone else, it's like when you're already so busy day to day, it's so hard to find the time to dedicate to learning new things, to change management, to getting everybody on the team on board, especially if you are like given that cap of like, this is your responsibility to implement now. Trying to like just like, muster up energy to like get everyone else excited. It can be challenging, right? So it's hard to know kind of where to start. Gerardo, what are you seeing on the ground with your colleagues right now and other DMOs that you're working with? What are the conversations happening at that level?
Well, it's very interesting. We see many different profiles within the sector. And on the one hand, we have the people who are scared about or are reluctant about starting adopting AI technologies at any level. It could be either because they are just comfortable with what they're doing, that status quo fits them, and why should we do something different if this is working? We've been doing this for the past 30 years. Why do something different, right? So that's one profile. We could also see the people who find it overwhelming. So I'm not against it. I'm not scared of it. It's just too much. Where do I start? And I do understand that because there are so many tools, so many options, so many developers, so many AI platforms right now. It's not like when you had to decide whether going into the internet or not, or having an email or not, or having a website or not. Right now, the options are so many And it's not only in one category. So it's not only about content creation or about processes or CRM. Like it could be applied on many phases. And that's what we're going to be talking about here and that workflow. So where do I start if I'm someone that is currently using only maybe not even ChatGPT? Like I'm doing email, I'm doing social media just as I know it. How do I jump from that to being an AI user? So people who find it overwhelming, people who think they don't need it or why should we start doing it, and people who are scared of it. Why? Because I don't want to give my information to AI or platforms, or I don't want to take or adopt this new platform that could put me or my colleagues or my staff in risk and eventually replacing them, which is not the case because I know that we are 2.5 people here at the organization and we need like 10 people. So no one's getting replaced. We're just trying to add a new digital team member. So that's where the conversation starts. And then we have, depending on the size of the DMO and the profile of the leaders of each DMO, we have the ones that have already started using it, basic level, ChatGPT on a daily basis, writing emails, creating a little bit of content. And then we have the ones that have actually, mostly the ones that are paying users as organizations or individuals that have adopted those technologies on a more serious basis. And then we have a few that are very strongly into it. What is interesting is that it has happened so fast in the past, 5 years, that AI was not part of any conversation, only specialized ones or very niche. And right now it's hardly outside of any conversation in that very short period. So that's what's happening. And I think most of the DMOs and the leaders at the DMO sector, we are aware that this is happening, and especially little ones, we are a bit concerned and we don't want to be left out.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you, kind of instead of writing this article that you were working on, reached out to Peter for this idea and putting this series together. It's such a great way to digest information and just interact with, different types of learners and just engagement. It's really great. So, Peter, I'm just going to throw it over to you. Can you just kind of give us a bit of an overview about these kind of first 3 episodes in the series that we're doing and what we're going to be covering off?
For sure. So before I do that, I just want to talk about actually this podcast and use of AI for marketing, because this is a great example of, Gerardo could have just written an article. But here we are having a conversation that now can turn into some video content, that can turn into video shorts, that can turn into that article, that can turn into social media, just out of one easy to execute content piece, right? So I just wanted to kind of inspire people around thinking that AI isn't just ChatGPT. AI is rethinking how you do everything, and now all of a sudden things that weren't possible 2 years ago are actually quite easy to do with the use of technology. So just start there. But episode 1 really is going to be focused on the skeptics and casual users, and getting them unstuck and moving from 0 to 1 or 1 to 10. I always talk about AI adoption in those kinds of ways. If you're at 0, just need to get to 1. If you're at 1, you need to get to 10, and one step at a time. Crawl, walk, run, right? So that's really where we're going to start off. Hopefully break through some of that skepticism and help people feel excited about the opportunities, especially for small DMOs. Episode 2 for teams ready to integrate AI into workflows. So talking a little bit about data security and really starting to think about AI as building AI tools almost as teammates and supporters to help with some of that heavy lifting, because there's so many opportunities to do that right now with the tools that exist. And episode 3 will be for organizations ready for that long-term strategy. And so building AI roadmaps, developing skills at different levels, thinking about the workforce of the future. I just had this conversation with my kids' school actually yesterday, and organizations need to be thinking about employees of the future as well. So I want to kind of dig into that and get people thinking a little bit bigger picture about the sort of way to build your organization in the new AI era. And so I think those will be the 3 foundational kind of episodes to get us started. I hope we can do more after that. And so, potentially in the future, we can get into more like competitive analysis, creative development, some more tactical stuff, and really how to get AI to do some heavy lifting. So that's where we're starting, and we'll see where we end up.
And Gerardo, what's like your hope for, if what does success look like of this series? What's one thing you hope that leaders are going to walk away with, or not even just leaders, anyone working in tourism?
I think we need to give both the inspiration and the security to all the DMO leaders and teams so they can know that they can take the next steps and how to do it. So if we get those two and we bring that to the DMOs at British Columbia, that'll be a great success.
Amazing. Okay, so that was a lot of setup for this series, which is good. It kind of gave us a little bit of background on all of us and what we're doing. So we'll kind of get into some of the first questions here. Peter, I know, we obviously work with a ton of clients, tourism operators, DMOs. What are you hearing from? And maybe this is more at conferences, people that just don't want to touch AI. Like, what do you think is like really behind that resistance to wanting to dig in?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think there's a number of different things. So first of all, as Gerardo mentioned here, everybody's really busy, right? And so, to think about, oh, now I need to figure out this new thing is really putting a lot on people, right? And I always tell people the uncomfortable truth is AI is going to cost you more time before it can save you time because it's a new skill, it's a new way of thinking, and so you got to put in the time, right? It's not just going to magically and that back to that trough of disillusionment. The guy I talked to yesterday, just sort of watched some YouTube video and thought magic was going to happen and all of his problems are going to be solved. That world doesn't exist. That world will never exist. It'll create new problems, right? And so I think number one is just the time, and people just don't have it. Number two, I think there's a lot of fear out there, and it's not just fear, personal fear of leaders, but also fear of what are my employees going to think? Are my employees think I'm just trying to replace them? I always tell this story that we did an AI adoption with an organization where the leader wanted to be the absolute leader in AI adoption, and his employees said, if we go down this route, we're gonna leave this organization. Like, that's my favorite story to share. And it was really eye-opening for me because after 3 months of conversations, everybody was all in on AI because everybody understood what the goals were and the objectives were and what we were trying to achieve, right? So, I think a lot of leaders in the DMO space are probably afraid to have that conversation. And so there's like fear driving, it's just easier to do nothing. And then third, change is hard. So, getting somebody to do something a different way is hard. And you know this, Kendel. We are probably one of the most AI progressive organizations that I know of, and it's still hard to get people to continually use the tools and use the tools well and evolve and all that kind of stuff, right? So, it's a lot of work to make this all happen, right? So I think those are kind of the main things I hear from people.
Yeah. Is that similar for you as well? Gerardo? Help me pronounce your name the best way possible
You
here.
want to do it in Spanish? It's Gerardo. Think of a
Gerardo.
strong H at the beginning.
All right.
Even though it's a G.
Gerardo. I'm going to do it now. Is this the same for you, what you're hearing? Like when someone says AI isn't for us or like we just don't have time for it, do you think that's kind of the things that Peter said? Is that kind of like the same rationale that's behind those answers?
Yeah, and I would even take it a step further. It's not only what our employees or what our staff could think of us as leaders if we are adopting these new technologies is like, oh, we're being replaced, which is not the case. We are also, as DMOs, public organizations. So we have faced and we have a perception to deal with out there. A lot of us are funded through taxes, for example, or a combination from taxes, grants, and our own resources. And that means that we owe ourselves as organizations to the public, right, in a way, or to the industry and to many people out there that know that we have this responsibility to promote the destination, and that includes to promote businesses and to help them grow and to activate the local economy. It's funny because there's a very common overlapping at destinations between the economic side of it and the cultural and artistic aspect. I think you know where I'm getting with this. So AI is a very sensitive topic at the arts community because in many ways we're seeing AI replacing, and that's the truth, replacing artists with many different kinds of creations. So, but at the same time, we're economic development. So where do we draw that line on still having AI as a very practical tool, but at the same time respecting and enhancing what we see out there at the arts community, which we try to do. So I think for some tasks and for some creation, it's valid to do it and still keep that respect and putting up the value on the arts community and the cultural aspect and the value on the creation from the human side, but at the same time, being able to do more. So like I was just at Universal Studios last week and so many things are being artificially created. And a lot of that is amazing. Like, it wouldn't be possible to do what they're doing without that technology. But at the same time, how do we create and keep that originality and natural part of it? So I think it's very important, not only where do we draw the line, but how do we combine these two worlds? And I find I don't have the specific answer to it, because I think it's a custom suit for each situation, for each organization. But that's something that we're also facing. This backlash whenever we use AI to create some poster or flyer, and most of the community are accepting it well because they know it's a tool. But we also see some backlash from the arts community, like, why didn't you hire someone to do that?
Mhm.
And the simple or most straight answer would be because we don't have the budget to do it. So my option would have been me going to paint and doing it like in the old times, like, I'm not trained in graphic design. So if my option is not having the budget to hire someone to do it and having to do it myself in a crappy way, or using AI and doing it, probably I will choose the second one. If I do have the budget, I would of course prefer a local artist to participate in the process, but it's not always going to be the case. If it's something I'm just playing with and it's something that is not incredibly relevant, probably I'm just gonna go and use AI for it. If it's something that involves the local community or if we're promoting local art, of course, local artists have to be part of it. So I think it's there's no right or wrong on it. It's just many different approaches that we can take.
Yeah, I know that is a very timely topic for so many organizations. I think particularly organizations that do get funded by public money, there is a lot more, I guess, accountability that you need to be more, transparent, and where do you draw that line? How forward and transparent do you need to be from the outset? It's not even about budget. Sometimes it's like a timely thing. Like if you need something rushed, there's so many variations, scenarios where it's just easier, more convenient to use AI. But yeah, you're touching on, I think, a challenge that a lot of organizations have in terms of, I think Peter can speak to this as well, but it's definitely a very interesting conversation that needs to be had.
Here's my kind of conversation on that, or my comment on that, Kendall, is that as a leader of an organization, as a DMO leader, you need to have this conversation, because you may have staff using these tools, whether you want them to or not, for the wrong things. Right. So, having some parameters on when AI, yes, when AI, no. Right. Having some parameters around, right, when make sure there's a human in the loop. So there's a lot of this, what's called shadow AI use happening, where people are hiding their AI use, and that's not good either. And there's all kinds of things and problems that can happen as a result of that. And if your stance is no AI, sadly, what people are going to do is then they're going to basically take it to their home computer, and now they're putting files from your company or your organization on their home computer, creating all kinds of risks and problems and stuff, right? So no AI is not a good strategy, because it comes with more risk than let's talk about AI and put some parameters around what is okay and what is not okay, right? And I'll just say that employees and people working for companies are looking for leadership and looking for direction right now. So I tell people all the time that this is a leadership moment. It's an important leadership conversation. And so that's why, again, I was so happy to have this conversation and to talk about these things, because DMO leaders, doesn't really matter what your personal opinions are and your fears and your concerns. This is coming. It's here. You need to lead it. So that's just, my perspective on that.
No, that's great, because, my next question was going to be kind of how do you help a skeptical leader, that might be having some of these concerns? So I feel like you guys both just addressed that with your comments. So that's great. Great advice. Okay. So Peter, we're going to talk a little bit about personal user plateau. So we know that a lot of people are using ChatGPT. They're using it for a very basic functionality, like writing emails or captions. That's kind of it. So can you talk about the gap between that personal dabbling, as we'll say, and then actually using AI as a team, as a cohesive team?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, personal use is the place to start. And if you're worried about risks, then, I used AI this Christmas to actually, so my Christmas Eve family tradition is I make a traditional Christmas Eve dinner from a culture that's not mine. And so this year I chose Canadian Indigenous culture and made just an amazing meal with the help of AI. And there's no risk to that, right? And gave me all the ingredients. It made all the dishes. It even made a nice little PDF thing that I can give, put on each placement so that everybody knew what the menu was that day, right? So there's no risk to that, right? So, first of all, if you're not using AI or you're skeptical, you're scared, start using it for personal reasons. That's the best place to start and the risk-free place to start. But that's really not from an organizational standpoint where we need to be. We really need to start building team-based productivity enhancements. And so, on the team use, it's really thinking about it strategically. And so, again, for me, it's always starting off a little bit with responsible AI use policies and principles, understanding where it fits and where it doesn't fit. But then beyond then, it's thinking about your systems and about your processes and about where we can build, say, a custom GPT or a project in Claude or a gem in Gemini or whatever, where we can input information, train the AI on our company and our specific niche to do a very specific job. And then if we start thinking about it at individual level inside a company, and then also at a team level inside a company, that's when we really can start to get some of that productivity enhancements. And that's just using what I call out of the box AI. So ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or whatever. Way more opportunities beyond that, but that's the place to start, right? And then, then it's kind of getting past I know there's a lot of discussion around security and security concerns. And so, the one thing I'll say about that is free AI, not secure. Paid AI generally comes with more security. And even in a paid AI tool, you need to go into your security settings and make sure that the setting that says this AI can on my prompts or whatever it says is turned off. So what that does is it creates a firewall between your information and the AI using that information for the rest of the world. So that's an important point. So again, there's a little bit of literacy that needs to happen. People need to understand the tools because people are just using the tools. So they're straight to technology and we need to take a couple steps back. But then, like for me, it has access to, I use Claude AI. That's my favorite go-to tool. And I use Gemini as well. And they have access to my files. And so, I mean, right now I'm using AI and hey, I did this before Christmas. It was the most amazing thing I ever did. It really blew my mind. But went to Claude and I said, okay, go through all of the chats I've had with you over the last 3 months and go through all of the files that I've created with your assistance and go through all of my most recent strategic files of the last 3 months and put together basically a 2026 strategy for me. And it went through everything, all my emails, all my files, all my chats, and sort of categorized everything that I've been working on. And then I said, wow, that's a lot of stuff, isn't it? And it said, yeah, you're way too much. And I said, okay, let's pare this down. So I literally had a strategic conversation with AI based on my tools, based on my chat history, based on all my emails. And it worked with me to pare down everything, prioritize on a month by month basis how to execute everything I've been thinking about over there. So again, that's a mindset shift for people that, not just, hey, answer my email or, replacement for Google. It's like, this is my strategic partner and I use it every day, all day for all of my strategic planning and a lot of my execution as well. So I think, kind of getting people beyond the mindset of this is just a tool that's like a chat, to this is an extremely powerful tool with many capabilities if I use it well.
Nice. So speaking of using AI as a team, Gerardo, I heard that your team does something called AI Fridays. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, and we're actually turning them into AI Thursdays.
Okay.
That's just more like a calendar thing. So we know there are so many options out there, and we have the basic ones as we have mentioned. But AI can be used in many different applications, many different aspects of what we do on an everyday basis, both on a personal level and as an organization. So the team is encouraged to go and explore for a day, half a day, a week, a new AI platform. Could be anything. Doesn't have to be work related. That's the fun part of it, because sometimes something that could not appear to be work related could end up being work related at the end. So it could be something about music, could be something about content creation, about literature, anything. So they are free. We are free to go and take that time to go and explore. And we even have the budget, if it's not too expensive, to maybe pay for a month of one of these platforms and start learning about what's happening out there. So we've found some interesting results. So we've been working with music, we've been working with content creation, we've been working with file organization, and also what Peter was mentioning, like how do we connect the AI to our existing files and then could have that conversation with this artificial intelligence to know how to improve. And then And then on the user level, both professional and personal, we are trying to, on the one hand, as an organization, understand where do we need help specifically, not necessarily from AI. So where do we need help? And then how can we connect that to a help that could come from the AI world? And then the other one is, where can we grow? So one is like, we need it. And the other one is, we could do more. And I want to stop right here and go back to another reference. So I was just talking to Walt Judas, who probably everyone in this network knows about, the head of the TIBC, Tourism Industry Association of British Columbia, and the former head. And yes, we'll miss him. And I was telling him that when I first got this job as the executive director for Tourism New Westminster, my blessing was ignorance, because I didn't know that compared to the other 60-something DMOs that exist in British Columbia as part of the MRDT program, and there are more than 60, but just to generalize, I didn't know that New Westminster was one of the smallest ones, budget-wise. The small, like at the bottom. So in my head, and having worked with much bigger destinations in the past, both as a consultant and as a director for them, I visualized Tourism New Westminster and New Westminster as a destination that needed to be at a completely different level than what I saw when I first got into the office. So I didn't know we were right at the bottom budget-wise. I thought we were somewhere not at the top, of course, because there's like Vancouver, Whistler, Victoria, the big ones. But I didn't think we were that far away. So my approach was, we are not where we need to be in operations, in marketing, in staff, in what we're creating, and we need to be up there. So I started finding the tools and the creativity and the collaborations to move from close to zero to somewhere at 70s, 80s. Percentage-wise, because I thought we needed to be there. And it was never expected that we took the organization at that level. So that's why we have been doing very well, and we've been praised for our work. Now that I know where we are, we've been doing great. But one of the main tools that we found that helped us be where we are right now is AI. How do we do it? We don't have enough staff. We don't have enough money to pay for it, to contract someone to do this for us. So we need to get creative, and we need extra hands. So that has been the approach on an everyday basis, coming from this mindset that we need to do more. But it could also be like, how do we just do more?
I love that.
Yeah. Well, I love that idea of AI Thursdays, I guess it is. It's such a simple idea. And I think that if all leaders who are listening can make time for their team, whether it just be an hour a week to just go and play, like you said, and have that permission to explore, would be such a huge starting point. So it's
I just
a
say
great-
though, Kendall, in addition to going and playing, and I think what they're doing well at New Westminster is also then sharing. The sharing
Yes.
is really important. So, I think DMOs and every organization on the planet needs to start thinking about building a culture of innovation. And that happens through discussion, that happens through that sharing of best practices, maybe hackathons, different ways. Hey, let's all come to an idea together and bring the tools to the table and see who can solve the problem easier, make it fun and competitive for people, right? Because that culture of innovation is really important. And one of my favorite people to quote, Professor Ethan Mullick, talks about this concept of HR as R&D. And so what he means by that in this new world of AI, it's not Gerardo as a leader basically telling everybody this is how you're going to AI and here's how we're going to do it. No, his staff also from a bottom up perspective say, geez, I've been playing with this tool and I figured this thing out, or, oh man, I found this new thing or whatever, right? So it happens top down and bottom up. And that sharing and that communicating about it is actually where the magic happens of creating a culture of innovation. So that deals again with that people and culture part of things. And then when we're sharing and talking about it, that's when we get into the systems and processes thing, right? Oh, geez, we can improve this process, or we can implement AI into this part of our marketing process, development process or whatever, and then the last conversation is this the best tool? Geez, maybe ChatGPT sounds too robotic. Maybe we want to use Claude or whatever, right? So again, I think that sharing, not only the experimenting, but then the sharing what we're doing and learning from each other is actually where the magic happens.
Such a great point. Peter, I'm going to get you to dig in a little bit more there about, you mentioned systems, like systems thinking. So that's kind of where we're headed next here. What does that look like for a DMO when you get kind of past the just doing the tasks to really thinking systematically about your workflow, let's say? Can you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah. So first of all, as you know, Kendall, because you do these with me, we've been doing a lot of AI adoptions with DMOs and tourism organizations and a bunch of different organizations. And it's like I'm like a broken record, and it's like management consultants have been telling you need standard operating procedures forever, and now you really need them because it's actually when you actually have a standard operating procedure, now you can figure out where AI fits and where the human fits. And you can start to rebuild your processes with AI or think about building them AI first, right? And so, it's really a systematic approach. And then, what we talk a lot about is context engineering and context orchestration. And so, again, if we're thinking about building systems for AI, it's what is the context we need? And by context, I mean, what is the brand guide? What is our voice? What are some examples of good, and we'll just talk about marketing. What are some examples of our best performing blogs? All of that is really helpful context for an AI system to be really good at writing and communicating the way we communicate, right? But then, thinking about it systematically is, okay, what are the different context documents and context sort of pieces that we need to build systems to do marketing, to do operations, to do, I don't know, replying to emails, whatever the outcome is, whatever the task is, right? But, AI isn't replacing jobs, it's replacing tasks. And when it replaces tasks, all of a sudden the humans have more ability and time to do the 50 other things on the list or do the thing better than they were doing before because they're not ground into the task. And, again, from a systems thinking perspective, it's, okay, we've spent the time up front to understand the context and sort of figure out what all the context is needed to build AI tools that could be helpful to us. Now we've spent that time once. Now we don't have to keep repeating it because now we have a process and a system that can help do the heavy lifting, right? So even now you bring in a junior new staff person and the tool is built for them and they could just use it, right? And so that's really kind of where I think people need to start thinking and going. I keep telling everybody 2026 is the year of context engineering and orchestration. All I'm going to talk about is context. And one example of something we did recently at Tourism AI Network is we cleaned up and restructured all of our files in our G Drive, right? And we've named them and we've created a special file for AI to be able to read the file and understand where everything is, to make it easier for the AI, because the next thing is coming is AI agents. And so we need to start preparing our systems for agents that can actually take work and execute it on our behalf. So we need to be thinking about cleaning up our entire systems. Again, unfortunately, it's more work than less, but it's one of those things you do the work once and the payoff will be forever.
Absolutely. All right, we're coming to the end of this first little series that we're doing, but I want to just throw back to you, Gerardo. What is one small kind of step that a listener, DMO leader, or anybody could take this week to move from, personal use to team thinking?
Give it a try and understand that it's happening out there. And if you want to stay up to the task on what's happening at the DMO world and what's happening at the tourism world, the tourism industry, we need to incorporate it. And we need to help our teams be part of it and also keep learning, because this is happening so fast. Whatever we are creating at this series of podcasts could probably be obsolete in a year. So watch the podcast, pay close attention to it, and then watch the next one that we will be doing in 2027 because we need to stay updated. So it's just that. Be updated, be current, and bring your team along.
It's great advice. Just absorbing information as a first step is a great thing. Peter, what about you? One step that somebody could take this week?
First, I think one step that somebody could take, the DMO leader or otherwise this week, is just have a meeting with your team about AI and just ask questions. Be curious, right? So curiosity is actually, I think, the underlying piece to all of this. So who's using it? What are you using it for? And make it a safe place, right? So we're not here to make anybody in trouble. We're just trying to understand perspectives, have a starting place, right? And have that. And the starting place is that conversation so that we understand even where people are at. And we might be surprised actually with some of the use. But again, it needs to be a safe place because I think employees will be skeptical to share if they feel like they're going to be punished, right? And so nobody can be in trouble if that we're just starting today.
It's great advice. Thank you both for the conversation today. I think it's clear that you don't have to love AI, but it's here. So we need to engage with it. We need to learn it. And like Peter said, if you're using ChatGPT for personal stuff, that's amazing. Now let's think bigger. If you're using it for work, let's think bigger and think about how we can bring it to our team. So just like, I think that constant drive forward, always trying to see how we can move things forward with curiosity and an open mind. So next episode, we are going to kind of dig into what we're going to call that messy middle, how we can actually make AI a team member without freaking everybody out on the team and about data and access and all the risks that go along with it. So like we said, this is an ongoing series and we're always open to suggestions too. If there's any topics that you'd like to hear us talk about, you can kind of comment below or send us a message and we'd love to bring that to the table. But with that said, we'll sign off here and you can join us again on our next episode. Thank you.